We all know Harley-Davidson is famous for their century-long history of not just unrivaled top-quality motorcycle engineering, but how they redefine the style and aesthetics of motor vehicles today. But did you know about the long list of controversies behind just how Harley-Davidson Incorporated became what it is today? We are going to be looking at all that, starting with their founders, William Harley and the Davidson brothers. How Harley-Davidson began. It all started in 1901 when 20-year-old William Sylvester Harley was doodling on his desk. His drawing was a plan for a 7 cubic meter engine and 4-inch flying wheels he envisioned on his pedal bike. Harley didn't let his idea fade away on his desk as he proposed it to his childhood friend Arthur Davidson. They both worked on the idea over the next 2 years at a machine shop in their hometown, Milwaukee. The shop belonged to their old friend Henry Melk. They managed to finish up their work in 1903 with the help of Arthur's brother, Walter Davidson. They began testing the first model motorcycle, but unfortunately, it couldn't even climb up a hill without the use of pedals. It was an epic fail, but they chose to see it as a learning opportunity. They realized power was everything. They immediately began working on a much better engine of 24 cubic meters and a flying wheel of almost 10 inches. This was a much larger and better design than what William Harley initially envisioned. This time they had help from gas engine and motor engineer Ole Evinrude and Arthur's other brother, William Davidson. Together they all developed their new prototype and founded the Harley-Davidson Motor Company in a wooden shed at the Davidsons' backyard. Harley and the Davidson brothers built their first factory at Juneau Avenue. One of Harley-Davidson's most notable involvements was in World War I. Harley-Davidson was what some would call a major presence in World War I, not just for America, but for many other countries involved as well, like France. After the United States entered the World War in 1917, they demanded motorcycles to be used in the war. The United States government ended up purchasing an alarming 20,000 motorcycles from Harley-Davidson. One crazy fact about their World War I involvements is how they sold their best motorcycle model, the 18J model, which had an 18 horsepower engine that could travel 55 miles per hour to France. This goes to show you that they were all in for the profits. Their involvement in World War I actually paid off as they became the largest motorcycle manufacturing company globally by 1920. Things were going great for Harley-Davidson until the Great Depression hit in 1929. They had just released their 737 V-twin engine. During the Great Depression, they saw their sales drop down from 21,000 to just 3,700 between 1929 and 1933. The company did everything they could to survive the Great Depression, like starting a motor engine manufacturing industry even as far as manufacturing tricycles. They managed to survive and were one of the only 2 motorcycle companies to survive the decade-long Great Depression. Turns out World War I wasn't the end of their military expeditions, as the advent of World War II revived their military contracts. Since the only 2 motorcycle companies to survive the Great Depression were Harley-Davidson and the Indian Motorcycle Company, the United States Army once again demanded motorcycles from Harley-Davidson at the eve of World War II. The Army specifically demanded 45 cubic inches, which was nicknamed Liberator. Harley-Davidson provided the United States Army with up to 90,000 military motorcycles and even other allied nations like Canada, Russia, and Great Britain. Harley-Davidson were highly celebrated and awarded for their contribution, and after World War II, Harley-Davidson also supplied the military bikes used in the Korean War from 1950 to 1952. What many people don't know is that Harley-Davidson completely copied the BMW bikes used by the Germans in the war. They copied even their engines, drivetrains, and side values, combining it with their own improved flat-twin engines, and 1942, the Harley-Davidson XA military model was born. This 24 horsepower model could travel an alarming 65 miles per hour without generating much heat. Then came Harley-Davidson's involvement with the American Machine Foundry. This particularly sparked an alarming amount of controversy. After the American Machine Foundry bought Harley-Davidson in 1969, it was noticed that as a method to cut costs, they began production of poor quality motorcycles. The company adopted the quantity over quality approach, which led to the production of bikes that were lacking in durability, mechanics, and were just flat out unreliable. This left them with completely unsatisfied customers and left a huge stain on the name they worked too hard to create globally. This decline in quality also proceeded to cause a massive decline in sales, which caused a lot of significant financial struggles for Harley-Davidson. During the American Machine Foundry period, Harley-Davidson was also left with a lot of unhappy staff. The workers complained of harsh and exhausting working conditions due to the recent slash of workforce, which was also another method to cut costs. This eventually led to multiple labor strikes. The decline during the American machine foundry period paved the way for Japanese motorcycle manufacturers like Yamaha, Honda, Suzuki, and Kawasaki to enter and dominate the United States market from the 1970s to the 1980s with top-quality products which were also very affordable. This forced Harley-Davidson to try and eliminate the competition using anti-competitive practices by applying for 40% tax on imported vehicles to the United States Tariff Commission, disguising it as a way to protect American jobs, but left them with restrictive charges. Harley-Davidson had hit its period of peak demand. They decided to expand the number of dealerships they had in the United States. They adopted a waiting list system, of which some extended up to a year for popular models. Harley-Davidson had a lot of investors during this period, but they faced a dramatic drop in stock prices between 2003 and 2004. Before this decline, their retiring CEO, Jeffrey Bluestein, had profited about $42 million. This left investors feeling defrauded and attracted multiple lawsuits against Harley-Davidson. It's not just financial lawsuits. Harley-Davidson has a long list of environmental violation accusations, but the most recent and significant was in 2016. Harley-Davidson sold attachment devices known as supertuners, which allows motorcycles to emit more hydrocarbons and nitrogen oxides than permitted by federal law in exchange for a boost in bike power. It was decided on the 4th of January 2024 that Harley-Davidson would pay a fine of $12 million by the Environmental Protection Agency and were forced to buy back all 340,000 supertuners sold. Harley-Davidson, well known for protecting its trademarks, filed a lawsuit against British kids t-shirt company Next over trademark infringement claims. They claimed the chest graphics on the t-shirts were motorbike inspired and would confuse customers. This was all over one t-shirt concept. They demanded all the infringing materials be destroyed. Back in the early 2000s, Harley-Davidson touring motorcycles were employed in several police departments. These police departments complained of high-speed instability in Harley-Davidson touring motorcycles, as in Raleigh, North Carolina, a policeman named Charles Paul was killed on his motorcycle after experiencing high-speed wobbling. The California Highway Patrol conducted experiments on the Harley-Davidson touring models and noticed wobbles and instability on the test tracks. Then came the famous 2007 strike. On February 2, 2007, union contracts of about 2,700 workers had expired. These were employees from Harley-Davidson Incorporated's largest manufacturing company in York, Pennsylvania. They demanded better contracts as the company had proposed one which would reduce the pay rates for new hires and require employees to pay for their health insurance premiums. Harley-Davidson proceeded to lay off 500 workers because of the strike as it disrupted Harley-Davidson's national production. 2 weeks later, Harley-Davidson reached a labor agreement with union workers at the York, Pennsylvania plant, but still laid off some employees. You definitely have to talk about Harley-Davidson. Harley-Davidson has faced multiple accusations of promoting biker gang culture. Their association with outlaw biker gangs made them infamous in a lot of areas. However, this caused Harley-Davidson to be linked to numerous criminal activities due to guilt by association and even for helping create such a rebellious atmosphere. How Harley-Davidson Incorporated remains a largely iconic brand today, not just in America, but all over the world, can be considered astonishing given such a history of controversies, declines, and events that could have very well buried their reputation.